It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, November 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that has a lot of questions for Rick Tocchet after that shootout win in Montreal.
Crazy game.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. You could win $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we are going to get to our listener mailbag questions a little bit later in the show, but there is so much to dissect about that shootout win over the Montreal Canadiens, a roller coaster of emotions throughout the game. I do want to start off with the lineup decision here, because I think this is where, at this point in the season, Rick Tocchet is still a new coach, but we're starting to look at patterns here, right? And so we're looking at what he's trying when things aren't going well, and how to adjust here is a real indicator of what his coaching style is going to look like for this Flyers team. And with the 2 losses in a row, you look at the lineup decision with splitting up the Cates line entirely because Tyson Forster is still out on IR, right? And keeping Tippett with Dvorak and Zegras to start off with, at least. Konechny with Cates and Grebenkin to start off with. Now, it does rescue Grebenkin from the 4th line, so I suppose that's something. But, Delorier's in the game instead of Rodrigo Abels. So, what do you make of those choices for the forward lines?
I think Rick Tocchet's old school, and every 4 or 5 games, he's just going to put Delorier in. That's what he's going to do. It won't make sense. It won't matter. It's not about matchups. It's just about letting him play. So he's just going to put him in. As far as everything else, I think he's still trying to find things that work. And I think he did early on, and then it didn't work. And then, so it's I don't think this is a completed thing yet. This Flyers team may get to 15, 18 games and you still don't know what the lines are.
Yeah, and in some ways, I think that's fair, right? Because it is a team that has had a bunch of change, and the injuries have certainly not helped. They could still be kind of sheltering Couturier in a lot of ways, because he was hurt as well. And so, when you have to adjust to an injury early on, when you're trying to sort out a new team, I'm willing to give you some grace here, because that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of what's happening here. And then, honestly, in goal, it's back to anybody's job. It really is. I don't think anybody has the edge in goal now.
I think it's interesting because, that is definitely one of the things we have to talk about here, because obviously Dan Vladar, coming back from getting pulled in his previous start to going up against one of the most high potent offenses in the NHL, if not the most at the moment. And I think it's a very interesting challenge for a goaltender to go into that sort of situation, coming off a bad start in the previous game. And I feel like he did mostly well in the first 2 periods of the game, but in the 3rd period, he played a little panicked and was kind of moving quickly with what seemed like a lot of confusion.
Yeah, there definitely was confusion. There was almost a clearing mistake. There was, he did, however you want to, frame it, they gave up a 3-goal lead. He couldn't lock down a 3-goal lead. So those are things that go against him. That's just the way it is. And I think if Sam Ersson plays another solid game, they're back to square one, for both of them.
Well, and that's the interesting part of it, right? Because I feel like Dan Vladar played well enough that this was a redemption game for him in a lot of ways, especially with the shootout saves against some very good skaters that have
Hmm.
excellent shots, right? So even if you just think about the shootout aspect of it in isolation, that's a great note for him to go out on in this game and feeling it. I'm sure getting, all the kudos in the locker room as well after the game related to that. And so moving forward, I think he'll be okay. It's just that without Sam Ersson healthy, I still think Vladar just has that number one spot for now. I don't think Kolosov has shown enough to compete with
No,
Vladar at this point.
but I think when Urson comes back, it's just temporary for Vladar now. I think this initial wave has kind of worn off a bit, and again, a lot of it has to do with the Flyers' defense. Like, you might be able to put the best goalie in the league, and they might still have some trouble. And again, this may end up being like this for a while with whoever the two goalies are. But I just think when Urson comes back healthy, he comes back, he wins a game. I think they're on even ground. That's basically what I'm saying. Kolosov, he's just going to fill in, and he'll probably play once every 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, I do think that Urson will be given every opportunity in the world to win the starts back when he does come back.
Yeah,
I just think that for the moment, Vladar is the presumptive number one goaltender here. And then, we'll see what happens once Urson comes back, assuming he comes back pretty soon, which we cannot make that assumption
we have
based
no
on the
idea. Yeah,
groin injury
right.
situation there. But certainly this game, I think, helped Dan Vladar for the most part here. Again, some shaky moments in the third, but even though the 4 goals were scored in the second period, I felt like his positioning was better, and I think he just came back in the third very skittish.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So one of the things that we have been talking about that Rick Tocchet has been focusing on a lot is the net front play, that he felt like the team hadn't done enough of it. I thought they did in the latter stages of the Calgary game, that's for sure, a little bit so in the Toronto game as well. But they really did seem to at least try it in this game, especially early when they were getting those goals.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely with the man advantage, they definitely were doing better with it. But then when it was
Mhm.
at even strength, they were missing shots. Like they missed some bona fide easy shots, like Owen Tippett especially. Again, I sometimes you just scratch your head, but at least they're trying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the net front positioning was there. I think you are also correct that they were missing a lot of shots. I think Owen Tippett, yes, but Travis Konechny also
Yes.
was missing shots. Like, that is one takeaway from this game for me about Travis Konechny is that he was having a real rough go of it overall. We've talked about the fact that he needs to build his confidence back by starting a scoring run here, and there were multiple times where he either missed the net or shot it right into the goaltender there. He had that opportunity in overtime that didn't go. And
Yeah.
it's got to be really difficult for him because we know that he's very streaky. And right now he's on the downside of the streakiness. And there's been some times, especially when he and Michkov have been out there at the same time, where it's like hot potato in a lot of ways because neither one of them want to take the actual shot on goal.
Right. And actually, that's the other thing. I'm now looking at a Michkov that it looks like he's playing his first NHL games. Like that's how lost in everything he is. And it's a shame because he's really not in the flow at all.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that he's not sure how to utilize his game in this system yet,
Right.
because it's not working to his advantage, and
No.
he's not sure if he takes the shot, is that the right move, or if he passes it, is that the right move? And so I think there's a little bit of hesitation creeping into his game that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I mean, I only saw him go behind the net once on one shift. Uh, what did he get? Maybe 1 or 2 shots on net, maybe. It was just one of these games where he just didn't really feel, he was trying, but it just wasn't working.
Now, it is interesting that the line that was put together for him was what we suggested in some ways,
It
but with the
was.
wrong center,
Yeah.
right? So we had said we wanted Cates in the center, but that Brink could swing around to the other side
Yeah.
and Michkov could play on the right. And I firmly believe it would have worked better with Cates
I
as the
think so
center.
too. Yeah, I think so too. And I think, but again, they're probably just hesitant in moving Brink on the other side. So, okay.
Yep.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah. But I think, that's definitely to be continued on that front. There is a lot more to talk about, special teams in particular. We got to talk about the goal scorers. Want to talk about Travis Sanheim's play, and we will get to all of that coming up next.
Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast acting, doctor prescribed treatments for ED designed to help stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet is easy to get started. You just connect with a board certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit Rugier.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's Rugier.com/LockedOnNHL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. Rugier, stop making excuses and start making moves.
All right. On tomorrow's show, we will be taking another look at the Nashville Predators, what they've been up to since we saw them very recently. This schedule is weird, I gotta
It is.
say. Yeah, and we'll have so much more as well with some follow-up on this Habs game. I think, I want to start with special teams in this segment because one of the things we talked about in the preview of this game specifically was wanting to see how this Flyers penalty kill, which had been so good up against this Montreal power play, which is seemingly unstoppable. And the Habs really had the Flyers number.
They did. Yeah, they were getting great chances. They were able to outpass the umbrella that the Flyers were playing or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was that, but anyhow, they outpassed it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where it just worked out for them. But like I said, we talked about adding Demidov to the top power play, and it made a difference.
Yeah. It really did. Of course, him getting that go ahead goal on the power play
Yeah.
in the second period there for the Habs. And I think that the Flyers did their best, but these are just really good shooters, and there's not
Hmm.
much you can do about that sometimes. There, just the way that they move the puck. But I think it was good experience for the penalty kill there. Now, one of them, Travis Sanheim, was in the box for, so that's really hard when one of your top penalty killers was in the box at that point. But the other side of the coin, the Flyers power play here, I think it's tough to say that it was good despite the fact that they got two power play goals in this game, because that was a banger of a sequence between those two power play goals on the
Hmm.
two-man advantage and the one-man advantage. That's exactly what they needed to do. That's exactly what we wanted from them, right? But we
Yeah.
could tell that the Habs were discombobulated early, and
Hmm.
so I don't know. It was very, very good, and I'm glad to see it. But when you put it in sum total of this game, it's still a little uneven, right?
Yeah, it's a little uneven. I honestly thought uh, there was about 30 seconds to go with that 5-on-3 where it didn't look good. And then they got the goal because of a great move by
Yeah, yeah.
Zegras. But if he doesn't do that move, we're bitching about it even more. So I think you're right in saying that.
Yeah, because if you look at the power plays they had later in the game when things were starting to fall apart a
Hmm.
little bit for the Flyers and the Habs were starting to get it together, that's when I wanted to see the Flyers power play step up even more, as the Habs were creeping their way back into the game here, the Flyers had a couple of opportunities that they weren't able to capitalize on
Yeah.
later in the game. And those were the ones that I was a little concerned about. But again, I think, the success they did have in this game is something to build on.
Hmm.
I just would have preferred it to also have been successful a little bit later in the game. I do want to congratulate Nikita Grabenkin on his
Hmm.
first goal. Could not have come at a better moment.
Yeah, they
And
needed it.
they did. And, with Drysdale and Konechny getting the assists on that
Hmm.
goal, I think, we talked about Travis Konechny's lack of confidence here. And, a shot where the puck bounces out to Grabenkin, who just places it perfectly. I think, for Grabenkin to take advantage of that moment was key. And we knew he had this in him the whole time.
Yeah, no question. I think it was a really good goal. He stepped across the middle and, took the shot and it went in. And that's a lot of times that's a good place to kind of shoot from. Uh, I think it was a nice play. He made most of it. I'm also going to say that I still would take Drysdale off the power play. I don't like what I see. And I would have put Emil Andre on the power play, but they're not going to do that because they don't really trust him. They only played him 10 minutes and he played fine. But again, this is like something where he now has to prove to a coach. And I'm not sure he's going to get a chance to prove it because I think he's going to get rotated out again. That's just my
Yeah,
feeling.
I do wanna talk about that, but just to close the loop on Gurbenkin,
Yeah.
the fact that he was out there with Konechny being
Hmm.
moved up in the line allowed him to take
It did.
advantage of that opportunity in a way that he just wouldn't get those kind of chances on the fourth line, and so that's just the point I'm trying to make here is that keep him up
Yeah.
because that's the way
Well, it's a good
Gurbenkin is gonna
point.
be successful.
But to be honest, I think what necessitated it, I don't know if it was a great in-game thing or was it just because Garnet Hathaway was worn out and
Ugh.
he couldn't even skate down the ice with the puck at one point. So I think that forced them into doing it, to be honest. But they did it, so that was good.
Yeah, let's go back to the Emil Andre
Hmm.
conversation because I put in all capital letters in my outline, no power play time, what? With lots of question marks after it.
Yeah,
I think it is a good question, especially considering just how much power play time the Flyers got in this. That the opportunity was absolutely there. And to your point, Drysdale just wasn't cutting it in this particular game. I've seen some improvement from him previously, but this game, it just was not it. And so why not put Andre out there?
no, I think they should. I mean, again, you're talking about a situation where Drysdale again had no shots on goal. Like, no shots. Like, if you're telling me he's taking enough shots on the power play when he's getting 4 minutes and 33 seconds of it, like, come on. It's almost impossible to do that if you think about it.
Yeah, it was not a great effort from him overall on the power play. That is
No.
for sure. And I just think like we know what Emil Andre can do
Yes.
on the power play, and so to not give him a chance, I'm not sure. Yeah, Drysdale only had 2 shot attempts even in this
Crazy.
game. None of them were unblocked.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are with that. Travis Sanheim in this game got super frustrated early, and I think he was like a little bit mentally out of it for a time after that because when he was on the ice for that first Habs goal and then he
Yeah.
took the penalty.
Yeah.
It's a very uncharacteristic thing for him.
It's the minutes. I think the minutes are, bothering him a bit. I mean, you can't keep playing a guy 23 minutes a game. You got to have it once in a while where he flip flops and York plays more. I mean, it's just, they're asking a lot of this guy. And sure, he gets paid good money and all that. And, people could say all that stuff. But, he played 338 shorthanded. I mean, it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. I mean that's entirely possible. I just like did notice that he just felt a little
Yes.
unlike himself in this game in particular. I'm not again not worried, but just
No.
something to observe about this particular game. And then, of course, I feel like a broken record at this point talking about Trevor Zegras and how great
Yeah.
he's playing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you have to keep saying it because I feel like he is such a tremendous presence for the Flyers
Mhm.
this season, and his style of hockey. Now, you could say, well, this is what we are expecting from Michkov eventually, but this kind of dynamic style of play where you just literally never know what he's going to do. And like, he's very difficult to play against, for other teams, as much as Rick Tocchet says that Trevor Zegras is exhibit A of being hard to play against because he's so shifty and it's incredible to watch.
Yeah, he's completely different from Michkov because, I mean, he's been in the league long enough where he's able to play loose, and he's playing looser than he did like last year in Anaheim. So he's playing at a looseness level that I used to see in juniors with the NTDP, and then when I used to see uh, after that, and then his early seasons, and then it kind of went away. And so now that's back, and that's when he's his most creative.
Yeah, I just am constantly thrilled by watching Trevor Zegras play, like with the puck, away from the
Yeah,
puck. It's just something that we just haven't had from a lot of Flyers. I think
that's
Travis
true.
Konechny has been like that at times, but as he's gotten
Not this
older,
year.
his
Yeah.
yeah, not this year. His style has changed a little bit, but just so much fun to watch, and I absolutely love that he is a Philadelphia Flyer. But in the meantime, we do have our mailbag to get to, and we are going to answer your questions on Rick Tocchet and so much more coming up next.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score to the next fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you could combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Again, I would bet the under for the Brooklyn Nets on wins for the season. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, getting into our mailbag here. Our friend Chris Berry commented on YouTube. How would you rate Tocchett's coaching so far? Some analysts think that while he's not as vocal about his decision making, he does think along similar lines as Torts does.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some familiarity there that we see that they're similar, but there's some differences in the sense that he will tell you a little bit more about the players. He doesn't say, "Well, I'm not going to share that with you." Doesn't mean he's sharing everything with you, but he doesn't have to tell you he's not going to tell you. And so there's a difference there. So there's a little bit more openness. But yes, are there some traits that are the same? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and John sent us an email very similar to that about the differences between the two and it being hard to understand what the difference is. John suggested that he's less volatile with the media, and that's
Well,
been
that's
the
what I just
most,
outlined. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's just interesting, but I do think that there's a difference between what we saw from Torts
Hmm.
last year versus what we saw from Torts in year one. And I think what's fresh in our memories about Torts is last year. So
Sure.
I do think there was a lot more like forthrightness from Torts earlier on, as a newer coach, and that's what we're seeing from Tocchet. And I do think there are some systematic differences here that are leading to some of the Flyers breaking out and being a little bit more successful than they've been in the past, but not all of them,
Right.
and not all of them yet. And that's kind of where we're at, why there's a little bit of frustration about
Hmm.
some of the players. And Dave commented, is it me or does it seem that Tocchet is holding Michkov back and causing him to change his game and style of play? And that's what we talked about, earlier in this very episode, that Michkov seems a little lost, and it's a combination of line mates. It's a combination of confidence, and there's something to it there.
Yeah, I mean, before overtime, he only played like 11 minutes even strength. So, and he really, I think it was middle of the, I want to say probably 5 minutes into the third period, he only had about 10 minutes of ice time. So, at one point I looked and he was like 13:25, and I'm like, he's still at that 14-minute mark. Like this is not like, you can't tell me that this is just coincidental, because most games, unless it runs into overtime like this one did, he's getting about 14 minutes. Like, this is what the plan is. And I don't think it's a good plan.
Yeah, I think of all the things that are questions right now, that is certainly the most important one
Yeah.
happening right now. I think some of the other stuff, it's hard to say because the injuries have affected things. And I think, obviously Jacob Gaucher looked so slow out there.
Yeah.
He just did not fit in this
No.
particular game. I think he looked okay in the last two games, but those are slower teams overall. Even the Leafs are a
Right.
little slower than
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
Habs. So I think that was very noticeable here. And so obviously it's not the most ideal lineup for Rick Tocchet. And so it's
No.
hard it's like apples and pears a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the Michkov aspect of it is like number one on the list in terms
It
of
is.
figuring
And
it out.
until we see like a breakthrough of some sort on how he's being used in minutes, we're going to all think that.
Right. Now, one of the things that we talked about in the show earlier is, the whole call up situation and why Emil Andre was getting the short end of the stick and not being able to be called up as, soon as he was, because the Flyers don't want to put Jennings or Zamula through waivers.
Right.
And that was kind of the roadblock there. So Joe McCloskey commented, so they're worried about losing two guys that at best would bring a 5th round draft pick. Neither Jennings or Zamula are a high value asset. And, I think it's a good question as to
Hmm.
why they're not willing to take the risk there. But I think they do see at least Yenning as a somewhat valuable asset here. And a pick is a pick, right?
Well, yeah, I think there's a very good point made here, and I think that is it's because of Rick Tocchet. He right now, still early in his coaching, does not want to have to start teaching another defenseman, so he is just going with these guys, whether that's the right move or not. And it may not be the right move, but it's the easier one. And right now, that's the path he's chosen.
Right, and in some ways, I think it's good he's rotating them through because at least Andre's getting some of those games, right?
Oh, is
Rather
he
than none.
rotating Noah Juleson? Let me know when he rotates him.
Well,
I'm just
Yenning,
saying.
Zamula, and Andre
Uh-huh.
at
Okay.
this
I'm
point.
just saying, tell me about the other guy.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And although I thought he played a little better in this
A
game.
little, but I mean, it's not like he's playing these great games either.
No, that is also true. Yeah, it is an interesting question though, and I think at
It
some
is.
point, if Tocchet will make a decision, and then one of those guys is going to go through waivers, in my
Well, I
opinion.
mean, it's going to happen when Risto's back, if he's back. But when he's back, yeah.
Yeah, it'll have to when he's back. That
Yeah.
is for sure. We have talked about Jett Luchanko and what he needs to do in junior. And R. Lavoie commented, Luchanko had an interesting first game back at Guelph, was on ice for 5 goals. Unfortunately, 3 of them were for Erie. Picked up an assist and almost scored on a drive to the net. He even got first power play minutes. And, so far in 2 games, he's got a goal and 2 assists. And I mean, it's hard to say this early, but the fact that he's getting significant time is what's
Hmm.
important here.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, there's definitely an adjustment period mentally when you come back from the NHL. It's kind of like, all right, now I gotta have to, restart here. And so I think you'll see better gains out of him a little bit down the road. I think that's all this is just getting back there and dealing with it.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think he'll be fine. It's just a matter of will the things develop that we need him to develop
Right.
over this year and through World Juniors and all
Right.
of that. But that's the important aspect of it. The point totals are going to be off because he'll have played fewer games, right?
Right.
So we have to look at a per game stat in order to evaluate that when the season comes to an end for him. We had talked about the last couple of weeks, Russ, your nemesis of the week was streaming service related. And Holly Johnson commented on Blue Sky saying, we continue to have problems finding a network to watch the games. And I know you touched on this. During preseason, we watched the Flyers play the Isles on their app, which we connected to the TV. Could the Flyers offer an app? We can't afford all the services.
I mean, it sure would be nice if they could come up with something else. I mean, again, you have to do it within the confines of what the league tells you can do too, because you can't go against the league deal. Although I think the Rangers did the 1 year, but that was kind of like an anomaly. So I don't know. I don't know what else they could do. I feel for everybody though. It's hard. It's like, you know, it's not the cheapest sport to follow.
Yeah, and we know they can't do exactly that based on the agreements that are currently in place. But I think the one thing I would like to see, and your complaint is about paying extra, too much extra for an ad-free experience because now the ads are creeping back into things. But that being said, I feel like there should be a blackout free experience that you can pay extra for a centralized streaming thing for your team and override the blackouts if you're willing to pay more. I think that's kind of the let the free market decide way of approaching it. And I think that's worth a shot.
I think the old NHL online streaming let you just buy for your team at one point for a little
Yeah.
while, and then that went
Yeah.
away. Because there are a lot
It
of people
did.
that would just watch their team and not have to watch any other games, and that would be okay. And there certainly is a way to figure that out monetarily, but the problem is then ESPN probably gets mad because they want every Penguins Flyers game. You know what I mean? So it's like because of the rivalry aspect, and that's where I guess the
And they can
problem.
still have it. It's just that they're gonna get a cut of this additional fee that's paid by people to a central service that
Yeah,
then pays out the dividends to the different networks that are broadcasting the games, but the viewer gets the centralized experience.
it would
That
be a
is
nice
my
thing, but
that is my proposal. We'll see what happens. But that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you want your question answered on the show, like we just did, let us know via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. Today, for your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.